Okay, welcome to another video. This time it's a 2004, or I think it might be 2005, Saab 95 2-litre manual linear model, I think it is. This has done 70,000 miles from new and it's one owner. Very tidy car. Unusual colour, it's a metallic. Standard alloy wheels. Actually a lightweight magnesium based alloy, these very light alloy. So this is the same engine as in my Saab 93 B205 light pressure turbo. This is standard, so it's the 150 horsepower model. So this has a cloth interior. It's a facelift, so from 2001 or 2 onwards they facelifted it into the shape that this is. Changed the materials for the interior. The dash top is black on these and the pre-facelift is grey, and the material, they didn't use velour anymore. It's just literally a cloth. It's a hard wearing cloth. It's not quite as nice as the velour, but still not bad though. Same shape seats as my 93, this being a linear model. The same shape seats as the 93 OG's standard SE models on the Aeros and the Vectors. They're bigger bolstering and larger areas around your thighs. This has usual Saab implements, full trip computer, 4 electric windows. There's no cruise control on this because it is just a linear model, 70,000 miles on it. The steering wheel on this is leather, but it's like a reconstituted leather. It's not a original like full leather, but it's a standard wheel on this one, which is what I would have had on my 93, but I changed it for the later one, for 95. We've got an armrest on these, which is pretty good actually. Nice solid armrest, they don't creak or anything like that, they're quite well padded. Gaiter, again reconstituted leather, it's not a true leather as such. On the earlier 95s it was real leather, but Saab being squeezed by General Motors for budget, so they didn't have the money to keep on producing like full leather anymore. So this one's got a CD player. On higher models it had a CD player and a tape player built into the head unit, which is quite unusual. This is the famous Saab cup holder, which is working perfectly fine in this. Really nice action on that. And they actually used this on the Vauxhall Monaro or Holden Monaro on the dashboard on those, but it is a Saab design item. If you take the dashboard apart on one of these, they had a checklist on them, so it went through quality control, and I think it's checked by about 3 or 4 people to make sure it worked on each cup holder, which obviously would have been time consuming. Really nice materials actually. The dash is padded, even the lower section is like a soft padded material all the way up to the top. You've got on this as well double sun visors, is pretty cool, so you could push that one to the side and have this one down at the front. So 2 separate sun visors, which is a good feature. Illuminated vanity mirrors. This one's got ESP, which is an advanced braking and ABS system in one, which my 93 doesn't have. Quite decent legroom in the back of this. Being a 95, it's longer wheelbase than the 93. And the Vectra B, on which it's loosely based, it's a longer wheelbase than the Vectra B. It's also related to the American Saturn L series, L200 and 300 I think they're called. Same wheelbase as the Saturn, strangely enough, but vastly different vehicles. So the headrests in the back here are pretty cool. So they fall flat, so you can see where you're reversing and stuff. And when you've got passengers in the back, you press the button and they flip up, lock in place, so you have a full height headrest. So when you don't need it, just push the button and it goes down again. Really nice, actually. This thing is immaculate. The headlining and everything is absolutely spotless. Very, very tidy car. So the 9.5 old generation ran from 1997 until 2010, and it had 2 facelifts in its time period. One in about 2001, 2002, because I've actually seen a wire edge facelift, but then I've seen anything up to the 52 plate pre-facelift. So it's just Saab, how Saab did things. So this is from Lytham Saab originally, which is a Saab dealership, proper Saab dealership. That was in Lytham in Lancashire up until the early 2000s, I think it was. So they came as a sedan or saloon, booted model, whichever you want to call it, just like this one. And they came in estate form or wagon form, whichever way you want to call it. Very large boot considering it's just the booted model. There's storage underneath as well, the space saver wheel, and that has never been used. You can tell because the bolts haven't rubbed the paint off where they go through there. I mean, it smells like a new car, it's lovely, really nice. Older gentleman had it, he's really looked after it. I don't think it's wanted for anything in its life, it's just a very, very tidy vehicle. So we'll have a look under the bonnet in a minute. Okay, so this is the engine bay of the 9.5. So it's very low mileage, so this engine is absolutely silent. B205, 150 horsepower. Engine bay is quite a bit different than the 9.3s. Even though it's a larger car, it's not necessarily any larger inside to work with. Got their own Saab design strut towers with strut tops, with metal caps with seals on them. It's not the weather getting to the nuts. So when you need to really work on the suspension, they come apart easier because there's no rust on them or anything like that. To hold the bonnet down, you've got a latch there and on the passenger side, so you've got 2 latches holding the bonnet down. You've got huge gas struts, which are a Saab only item, again not shared with any other GM vehicle. This is the later one, 2004-2005 model, so the later ones didn't have painted rocker covers, they were just a plain alloy. So because of Saab budget reasons, they cut back on a lot of stuff, a little bit like the Rover Project Drive, where they trimmed back on a lot of plastic trimming around the vehicle and other various pieces. It's one of the items that Saab did obviously save a few quid when they're making the cars. They weren't like a mass market manufacturer, they didn't make a lot of them. So each one, you know, was quite a bit of money if you're putting extra paint on stuff and plastic items you don't need. Antifreeze like new on this one. Battery under that cover there, easy access and all that lot. And turbo dump valve, recirculating type. Garrett GT17 turbocharger underneath there. It's a very quiet engine that. Saab 9.5 was launched in 1997. A good choice of engines. It had a 2 litre 150 horsepower, a 2 litre 185, and then it had a 2.3 litre I think 200 horsepower one, and then it had a 3 litre V6 GM engine, which is highly modified by Saab to receive a single turbocharger, which produced only 200 horsepower but was very torquey, only available in automatic form. In 2000, I think it was, they released the Aero variant, which was the 225 horsepower version of the 2.3 litre B235 engine, which was used also in the Saab 9.3 Viggen, even though the 9.3 at the time didn't actually use any of the 2/5 engines until 2000, late 2000, 2001 model year. standard map, so it's not been tuned or anything like that, and you can feel it's significantly down in power compared to mine. Although it's not pointless or anything like that, you know, there's still plenty of torque in the mid-ranges. It's still a very competent car. Got the same gearing as my 9.3, so very long gear, which makes it very relaxed on the motorway. Good fuel economy, and very quiet as well. The ride quality on this is absolutely outstanding. It takes ruts and potholes and stuff, you know, it doesn't even notice them really. The brakes are superbly strong on it, even though it's got the same size brake discs on the front as my 9.3 and the same calipers as the Vectra in the 9.3. The rear brakes have a larger caliper on them. Cylinder is a larger item as well, which gives the pedal a lot more feel and a lot more bite. So it's a very refined vehicle really. I mean, this was pitched against probably the top end of the 3 Series, maybe the lower 5 Series, I think Mercedes E-Class possibly. Rover 75 was out at a similar time, similar size vehicle, similar pricing, and Volvo at the time obviously with the S70 and B70, because it is quite a large vehicle. It's loosely based on the Vectra B platform, but obviously, as I've already mentioned, the wheelbase is longer, and Saab have modified every part of the suspension, even though they may look similar. The settings are vastly different, so they feel like 2 completely different vehicles to drive. You wouldn't think they're related. Saab have got their own steering rack, steering column, front suspension is all different, suspension arms, struts, subframe is all like Saab only items. The rear suspension looks the same, but the track is wider on it, and the spring and shocker settings are all differently tuned for the Saab. It's more for comfort and luxury, even though it hasn't affected the handling. It's still a very, very well competent handling vehicle. So this 9.5, it replaced the 9000, which had been around for 14 years or so, and the 9.5 ended up running a similar time period. So they did very well to keep it going for that long and still be competitive to the rivals, such as the Mondeo in front, which probably would, if you had a high-end Mondeo, I suppose it would have been similarly priced to the 9.5, although not as exclusive. The 9.3, the seats are very comfortable, visibility is absolutely excellent, really good placement of mirrors, and all the gauges are so easy to read and everything's at hand, unlike a lot of modern vehicles that use touchscreens to control, you know, major functions such as air conditioning and radio and other data such as that. Everything's like touch, so you don't even have to look at a lot of stuff to control it, which I think is a lot more advanced than touchscreens. The steering column on this is adjustable for reach and rake, so you can, you know, the height of it and the depth from which you can adjust it is infinitely adjustable on this, which is advanced over my 9.3 and the Vectra. The Vectra is tilt only, and it's quite limited. So it's got multiple positions for the steering wheel, and the seating has a tilt function as well as height function, lumbar adjustment and stuff like that. It's not really about performance figures on this. I think 0 to 60 is probably about 9 seconds, something like that, but it's irrelevant really. But still in the mid-range, you know, it's probably way in excess of anything naturally aspirated from the competitors. Same size engine. The standard, you get dual climate zone in the 9.5s. All of them have air conditioning, all of them are turbocharged, heated mirrors, and this is just the base model. All of the switchgear is Saab only as well. The only thing that they share that I can see is the mirror adjustment switch, which traces its roots back to the Mark III Cavalier from 1988 onwards. Even Saab modified that ever so slightly, so everything is still modified. Let's stop here. So the brakes are fantastic on this. The higher end models were available with a Harman Kardon uprated stereo system that had 6x9s in the rear shelf, a huge amplifier, disc changer as well as the one in the dash, and a cassette player as well. The head unit's actually made by Pioneer for Saab, so it's a very good quality unit. Came with a 4-speed automatic originally, then that changed to a 5-speed, and all the manuals are 5-speed. They never had a 6-speed in the 9.5 because they were restricted by the chassis and the subframe to take the 6-speed gearbox. So they had the 5-speed, which is, again, it's not a bad thing because the 5-speed is a very reliable unit and it's long geared enough that you don't really need a 6th gear. Very quiet in here, very, very quiet indeed. The other thing to note as well is that the Saabs all use plastic fuel tanks. Anything from 1980 onwards had a plastic fuel tank, whereas in the Cavalier Vectra A compared to the 9.3, the Cavalier used a steel fuel tank, as did the Vectra B use the steel fuel tank. But their counterparts, i.e. the 9.5 and the old generation 9.3, used their own designed plastic tanks, which is an obvious benefit with weight, safety, and obviously they don't corrode. But yeah, it's just a great car to drive. It's the type of vehicle you could leave it standard and be quite happy using as it is, or if you wanted to remap it and change the suspension and everything else on it, you could make an absolute beast of a vehicle out of this. You know, it's a good starting point because it's low mileage, this one. It'd be a shame to change actually because it's survived so long as a standard model. Right, that concludes the test drive. So in conclusion, the Saab 9.5 is a very interesting and competent vehicle, and they have good longevity as well. You know, this thing's like 18 years old and it's, you know, it's still as a new car, so it shows if you look after them, they'll last. So it's something to consider rather than going out for the usual BMW or Jag or something along those lines, or Mercedes, or some old old 3 Series or something. You know, don't overlook a 9.5 because they're a very interesting car.